Welcome to our look into the secrets of ancient Egypt. Today, we explore a mystery that questions our history. Could the Egyptians, famous for their buildings, also have known about electricity?
It's interesting, Michelle. Think about the Baghdad Battery, an artifact from the Parthian period, often wrongly linked to ancient Egypt. This clay pot with a copper tube and an iron rod might have been a simple battery. How did they make something so advanced with what they had?
It's hard to call it a battery like we think of today. The Baghdad Battery could make a tiny voltage if filled with vinegar or another acidic liquid, but there's no proof they used it for electricity like we do. It might have been for coating things with metal, not lighting a bulb.
But Ryan, what if this is more than just technology? Could the Egyptians have ideas we overlook today? Look at their symbols. Could electricity have played a part in their religion or art? Their culture often valued symbols over practical use.
Are we missing something by looking at old technologies only with our modern eyes?
Exactly. Think about the strange Dendera Light. These carvings show people holding what some say are electric lamps. Mainstream archaeology says it's just myths. But could there be some lost knowledge here?
But not every ancient puzzle is about hidden technology. Often what seems advanced is just us misunderstanding their art. We need to base our ideas on proof, not dreams.
Still, we should think about how amazing tech often comes from places full of imagination and creativity. Is our scientific way too strict, keeping us stuck on what is instead of what might be?
We have an interesting thought. History doesn't just show what we know, but also what we forget. Here, the question isn't just if they had electricity, but what this idea shows us about our limits in understanding old wisdom. As we look into ancient Egyptian electricity, we wonder, could they make something like a battery? If yes, what was it for?
Let's think about curious objects that show advanced ideas. In the Dendera temple, carvings show figures with a big bulb-like item. Most archaeologists say it is just a symbol, but we ask if these images suggest they knew something more.
Symbols often mean more than what we see. The Dendera images could be more about religion than technology. Even if they made a basic battery, there's no proof they used electricity widely.
Interesting point, Ryan. We should think about how technology and art work together. Ancient peoples showed their world understanding not just in tools, but in symbols. Egyptians might have seen these technologies as magic or godly, maybe even part of their stories and rituals. Could they have seen technology and spirituality differently?
Let's think beyond what we usually see as evidence. Sometimes what we think is practical stops us from seeing symbolic meanings. Maybe their progress wasn't about light, but about a different kind of understanding.
Exactly. Some new discoveries use old ideas with today's tech, like acoustic archaeology, which uses sound waves to find hidden structures. If Egyptians knew something like this, showing hidden parts in their buildings, wouldn't this change what we know about their technology?
But we must stick to the science methods we use now. Science moves forward with clear ideas and proof, not guesses. It's tempting to think their abilities were like ours, but we need to find out without imagining too much.
True, science needs rules but also creativity. Many science breakthroughs come from thinking differently. For example, Egyptologists now see pyramids not just as tombs, but also as tools to study the stars. How does this change our view?
As we study the past, we should ask, are we ready to rethink our history views? Maybe what Egyptians really left us is the questions we ask now. Let's look closely at ancient Egypt. Can we find hidden truths by questioning common ideas? Should we ignore different theories without checking them first?
Good point, Michelle. Think about how the pyramids were built. Some say they used a lot of workers, but others think they used sound to move stones. What do we know about their use of sound, if anything?
We must tell the difference between real science and just ideas. We know a lot about modern sound science, but we don't have proof that Egyptians used it in building. We should not imagine modern ideas into ancient cultures.
We shouldn't ignore the cultural aspect. Some Egyptian sites have sound designs for events. The sounds in some pyramid rooms might have been for spiritual reasons. Could they have mixed tech with magic in ways we separate today?
Maybe it's not just about them having tech like electricity. How do we see their innovations today? Are we missing something important by using our own ideas to think about them?
Yes, like how the Great Pyramid fits perfectly with the North. Some say they used advanced astronomy knowledge, others say it was trial and error. How can we find a balanced story of their history?
We need to base things on evidence. They didn't have magnetic compasses. They probably learned through watching and improving over time. Science grows step by step, not by skipping to wild ideas.
But what we think is impossible now might be true later. Einstein's ideas were strange at first, but changed physics. We should question today's facts while keeping scientific honesty.
Are we ready to rethink history with openness? If we ignore things because we lack proof now, are we just seeing what we don't know how to find? When we study old Egyptian stories, we ask, can myths, which are often seen as just tales, give us deep ideas about their technology? What can these stories show about their knowledge or mistakes about electricity?
Michelle, myths are interesting. Think about Ra's trip across the sky in a sunboat. Could this mean more than just a religious belief? Maybe it's an early idea about solar power, which we think is modern. Ancient people used examples to show complex ideas.
But Guy, even if myths use symbols, there's a difference between stories and facts. Myths explain things or taught lessons. They didn't focus on science. We need real proof to support these ideas.
Ryan, myths can be more than just simple stories. They might show what people wanted or how they thought. Egyptian stories might help us see their world, a mix of spirit and real world. Myths might hint at technologies they would learn later.
This makes us ask, are myths old wisdom that could help us find lost technologies? Or do they just show how Egyptians understood their world?
True, Michelle. Look at stories about Thoth, the god of wisdom. Could his magical writing be a clue to some kind of early technology?
While these ideas are interesting, we must know the difference between deeper meanings and real facts. Myths can help with culture instead of being a plan for technology. They might organize society instead of showing scientific facts.
Still, not all similar ideas should be ignored. The fact that many cultures share stories like the strength of writing or light suggests there could be a shared theme of tech-inspired stories. We should see how these shared stories show real actions.
Maybe myths show not what was real, but what people dreamed of, a guide to progress using symbols. How much does what we know now stop us from seeing ancient ideas through myths? As we talk about ancient Egyptian technology, let's think about our views. Did the Egyptians find something amazing we forgot? Or are we mixing facts with ideas?
In history, there were times when people found things ahead of their time. Think about Archimedes and possible steam machines. Maybe Egyptians had some advanced ideas then. Or did they hide their technology secrets on purpose?
We must be careful. Technology usually comes from need. Egypt's tools mostly improved life with tough surroundings. Things like the Baghdad Battery could exist, but were probably for small local needs, not big electric use.
Yes, Ryan, but remember, new ideas are not always for direct use. In the Renaissance, art helped science. Egyptian art might show science growing, not always for use, but for deeper goals, maybe mixing with spiritual technology like sound or light with divine meanings.
What if these symbols are records of deeper knowledge we can't see just with science? Ancient engineering left marks in myths and reality.
Exactly, Michelle. Look at the Great Pyramids. Some ideas say they worked with sound waves. We can find clues of acoustic design in Egyptian buildings. Is it silly to think technology mixed with spiritual feelings and experiences?
Though interesting, these ideas balance between imagination and proof. Science needs data to accept these thoughts. Without careful checking, historical insights might make things less clear.
But even today, big ideas need imagination to grow. Many important ideas start without proof. Maybe our historical views limit how we see old ideas match with new ones?
This makes us think, does our history view limit how we see old inventions? Or does it help us understand human dreams better? Do modern science limits create biases that change how we see past greatness? As we end this talk, let's think. Do we just watch history, or do we make it with what we choose to see? How many Egyptian secrets are still waiting, and are we ready to change what we think we know?